Alright guys, so here's the review of the Hruodland F018. So this is actually an homage of a Longines Heritage 1935. So I featured this in one of my AliExpress sale videos, and after that I ended up picking one up. So this isn't the first Hruodland I've checked out on the channel. I've checked out a couple of others, which I've got down here. This one is still one of my favourites I've got in my collection. So if you haven't seen the reviews of them, I'll leave a link to them up in the top. But let's get down to this one. So quickly pop the watch to one side for a second, briefly show you the packaging in passing. As you'll have seen it plenty of times before, it's the usual ones that San Martin, Steel Dive and all that used to use. And here it is. So I've got a blue dial version here. Pretty subtle blue, not like a really vibrant blue. Do quite like that, I think it suits the watch. But if you're not keen on this, they do a few different colour options as well. So they also do this in red, green, and they do a black as well. But with the black one it's slightly different than the other three, because that's actually got photina, whereas the other three don't. Link is down in the description if you want to see pictures of the others. But before we go into any more detail on this, let's go over the dimensions first. So we've got a diameter of 40mm, thickness of 12.5, lug width of 22, and then the all-important lug to lug is coming in at 48.2. So pretty nice dimensions. When it comes to the weight on this supplied leather strap, it's coming in at about 92 grams. And it is a really nice strap, really dark brown, looks almost black in certain lights. I think it suits the watch perfectly. Vintage kind of style. And then when it comes to the buckle, that's fully polished, matching the case. Not signed or anything. Flicking around to the back of the strap, you can see the stitching's nicely done too there as well. And we've actually got quick release as well, which is always good. So you can quickly and easily swap it out if you don't like it. Now flicking around to the case back, this is something a little bit interesting. So first of all we've got actual screws. But then when it comes to this text on the dial, according to Google Translate at least, this actually says property of the military administration. And that's because the watch this is based on, the Longines, was actually made for the Czech military. So now we'll take a look at the rest of the head of the watch, and as I said, it is fully polished, no brushing on it at all. We've also got that sterile crown there. But because it's fully polished, obviously it will gather fingerprints a bit, so I've got a few little smudges and fingerprints on this, so just give it a quick wipe first, so you can see it properly. And there we go, we can see it a little bit better now. So it is really nicely finished. And I do like the way they've angled down those lugs as well, so it conforms the wrist nicely when you're wearing it. And if we get a zoom in, you can see that really nice fluted bezel as well as that box dome sapphire crystal just sticking out ever so slightly past the top of it. As I've come to expect with Hruodland watches, the finishing is always spot on, there's never any issues with that kind of thing. So we've got these chamfered details around the whole edge of the watch as well, which just again help catch the light because they're also polished. And as I say, I just think it's a really good looking piece. It's just the little attention to detail, it's all spot on. And it's got a real vintage look to it, as you'd expect, with the watch it's homaging. But now let's take a closer look at the dial, talk about that in a bit more detail. So it's fully printed, nothing applied. And then we've got that sunken sub-dial, the seconds, down at the 6 o'clock. This is actually different to the original. I think the original was just printed. So again, a little attention to detail. Just adds that little extra, I think. Then on that second sub-dial we've got a little mini train track around the outside. And then obviously the numbers as well. Then when it comes to the branding, we've got that Hruodland text up at the top, which is in stylised font, again matching the original. And I think it suits the watch perfectly as well. When it comes to the quality of the printing, there's no issues with that. It's all perfectly fine. No obvious imperfections or anything. Then when it comes to the hands, we've got a nice high polish on them. And you might not be able to see, but they are actually cathedral style hands, which we'll see later on throughout the review. And obviously I'll probably chuck in some macro as well. Perfect proportions on them as well. Not too small, not too big, just right. We get a little bit of distortion around the edge from that box dome crystal, but now let's check out if it is actually sapphire or not. Using the trusty diamond selector tool. And yep, we have got sapphire crystal, so always good to see. So you're probably wondering now, with this being a dressier style watch and more vintage style, is it going to have decent lume or not? I have to admit I wasn't expecting much when I first got this, but let's check it out now and show you what it's like. So you can see we've got a little bit there already, but let's charge it up, give it a proper chance. And there we go. So you can see we've got that ice blue colour of BGW9, and initially it's looking pretty good. Really bright on those hands, slightly less so on the dial, but you kind of expect that with it being printed and not applied. But still, no patchiness or anything like that. And you can see now with that cut-off index for the 6 o'clock, due to that sub-dial, we've got just a little tiny slither at the bottom there. Looks a little bit strange, but I guess it's better than having nothing. So in terms of the longevity, as you'd probably expect, the hands are going to last longer than the indices, but they do last a decent amount of time still. Obviously they will fade sooner than the hands, but they'll still be legible for a decent amount of time. Not the best lume I've ever seen on a watch. Obviously it's not going to be competing with divers or anything like that. But for the style of watch it is, it's far better than I was expecting. It's definitely usable. And as you've probably noticed as well, we don't have any lume on that second hand, but given the size of it, it's probably for the best, because it wouldn't have lasted that long anyway, because it's just not that much surface area, because it is so small. So I don't have a problem with them not doing that. So you're probably wondering now, what's the movement power in this? So it's a Seagull ST17. So quickly show you this in action now. Got a screw down crown, so we unscrew that first. We've just got the one position, so we don't have a ghost date or anything. But you'll see, we don't have hacking, because the second hand is still going. So if we just change the time, and pop it back in, we've got hand winding. It's a little bit loud, but other than that, it works just fine. And then obviously we just screw the crown back down, all works well. It's a fairly simple movement, but it does the job. We've got plenty of grip on that crown as well, so it's easy to use, no issues with that. So overall, I think it's shaping up to be a pretty nice package. Arguably actually better looking than the original, in my opinion at least. But you probably want to see what it's like on wrist before you make up your mind whether you want to pick one of these up or not. So we'll also go over the pros and cons when we do that, so let's check that out now. And here it is on my 7-inch wrist. So, as you can see, wears really nicely. And I think it looks great as well. I think the strap suits the watch perfectly. And I love all these little chamfered details, just catching the light, with it being fully polished. Because we've got that pretty compact lug to lug, as well as those turned down lugs, conforms the wrist really well. Got that really nice domed crystal, as well as that fluted bezel. And when it comes to this strap, because it's a fairly thick one, it does have a slight break-in period, but as I say, it is really well made, and it is really comfortable too. So when it comes to issues I have with this, there's not really many. They're all slight little things. Because I did kind of struggle a bit to find stuff that I didn't like with this watch. So the ones I've come up with, perhaps we could have a layer or two more AR, but that's a minor one. The other issue that might bug some people is the fact that we've got a movement that doesn't have hacking. I personally don't have a problem with it. I think it works well enough, but I can see why people would want a slightly better movement maybe. But other than that, I think they've absolutely nailed it with this one, and as I say, I think it is personally better looking than the original. The finishing is great. We've got sapphire crystal with that nice dome, got that lovely fluted bezel, got the matching hardware on the buckle. It's just a really nice cohesive piece. That interesting text on the back of the case back, nodding to the original. So again, I think it's a really nice, tastefully done homage. So if you are interested in picking one up still, link will be down in the description as always. That is an affiliate link, it does help support the channel, but you don't pay any extra. But that's it for this one guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.